promise to brighten your day with thought-provoking insight. Without further ado, let's set the stage. In today's session, we have the privilege to be in the presence of vibrant scholars from the Far Eastern Federal University in Vladivostok, Russia. These speakers have dedicated their time to the fundamental key to success. In pursuit of this quest, they have allowed themselves to experience life-changing opportunities. It is not just their achievements that make them special and worthy to be here today, but also their tremendous impact on the African community in the city. Their ability to make the best of life has earned them a reward, which is why today they will be sharing their insights on education in Africa, the importance, related issues, and the solutions to these issues. Like I said, these are brilliant minds, and you're about to find out. Get ready to be inspired and enlightened. Firstly, I will introduce our speaker from Ghana, a postgraduate student who majors in hygiene and a bioscience lecturer. Welcome, Sinavia.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Our second speaker is from Sierra Leone, a master's student majoring in leadership and governance in public health, and also the president of the Association of African Students in Vladivostok. Welcome, Gika.
Hello and thank you.
Our third speaker is from Ghana, a master's student of molecular cell biology and an assistant lecturer. Welcome, Anif.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Our fourth speaker is from Gambia, a master's student of international relations. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing education in Africa. Education as it stands is one of the major pillars of knowledge. It does not only instill the essential substances needed for the contribution and development of the society, it also molds people into leaders who lead with emotions and true values. We have structures for today's discussion. Going first is going to be the general discussion about education in Africa. So we have some questions for our speakers, and I'll be glad to throw the first question. What do you think education means? Hanif, please, could you shed more light on that?
This is quite interesting. I think that in my view, this is very philosophical because you may not necessarily have an answer which would not receive some form of or may not lack some sort of aspects to try to cover it in all. But I think that it has to do with enlightenment, in my opinion. Yeah. Having to get enlightened, to get to know about something, to get to know about your environment, to get to know about interactions with people, to get to know about how to even do something. I think it's education.
Okay, thank you for your contribution. As we know, that is what education is basically about. But my question now is, what do you think education is in Africa?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, education in Africa is quite an interesting one. I would say, particularly trying to juxtapose, what I have gone through for some time and what I'm actually experiencing now. It's quite interesting. I mean, in Africa, I would say in Ghana, because I schooled in Ghana and I've experienced most of the things most of the education systems in Ghana. I think that I would say education in Ghana is more of a theoretical based approach than we have with practical. And there seemed to be some form of a lost link between the educational institutions and industry. And for me, that aspect is very important because the people that we are churning out of training institutions or educational institutions are to, in one way or the other, go to industry. That is one aspect. The other aspect also has to do with people having that enlightenment and being able to solve problems in society as well. And I think that there seem to be, some form of missing links in here, because often the industry seems to have a lot of issues that the people that come, they ought to have to retrain again and go through some, so it seems to be a bit costly for them. And educational institutions are also not having any sort of, link with industry. I think it's quite an interesting one, but it's more theoretical based than you have as well with practical.
Thank you. For our second question, Peter, in your opinion, what do you think is the purpose of education? I mean, why do you think we go to school?
I think before talking about the purpose, I would just like to add to what Hanifa had said. I think education in Africa, I don't think it's different from education anywhere in any part of the world. I think it's the same, but maybe how this is carried out differs, right? So basically education is what? Just to instill knowledge, like in a kid, in a child. Not only a child, because we learn till we die, but the stages in which this happens could be the same, like from childhood, from school, from work, and all other parts, and all other, sectors of life. And the purpose is what? Maybe primarily, as I see it today, is to impart some skills in someone, like in a child, in a youth, so that when the child grows up, will be able to contribute to society and also fend for himself by using those skills. But also it could be to make people like good citizens. Actually, this is just the classical, I would say, purpose: make people become good citizens of their countries, right? So, but I think it's way more than that. Also, I think it's way more than just trying to benefit, like, let's say, materially, contribute. All these things are noble, actually, noble purposes, noble goals. But again, having just to learn, having just to acquire education from childhood, from schooling, just for that self-enrichment, self-nourishment, like feeding your soul, your spirit, your mind, even without getting any material benefits from it, I think it's actually very valuable. And I believe it's one of the purposes also of education.
Okay, thank you. Back to the question, what is the purpose?
Well, again, like I said earlier, it's what? Educate somebody so that tomorrow the person will be able maybe to be a good statesman, for example, a good parliamentarian, wherein they will be debating about issues, about how to run our economy, our education system, our health, and what maybe educating somebody so that tomorrow they can come up with technologies, innovative, creative ideas that will be able to solve the problems of society, like Anif said. So I think basically these are some of the purposes of education.
Okay, according to what you said education is the things we are taught, how we are taught, and basically everything put together, right? According to a source here, it says education is not only what was taught, but also how it was taught. And it's not the concept that remains with them, but the process. So I have a question. Let's take this for an example. A student that went through a very rough process of education, a course one. When you say education, it's everything put together, the process, the method, and everything. So my question now is, in the future, this rough process, is it going to influence the future of this child? Because everything he went through, everything he or she went through is a part of the education process. So if the process is going to remain with this child, is it going to have an influence on the child? And how is it going to affect the society?
I think the influence could be either positive. Sorry, I'm talking too much here. The influence could be either positive or negative, depending on how the child is raised, depending on the education the child received, and the people, the teachers, the society, the family the child has been interacting with. Because we gain information from all those people, right? And the role models, you get it, maybe our kind of matches, people that we are linked with, you get it. It could be like your supervisor, it could just be an elderly friend who they guide you, your parents. But again, if you receive a child, for example, in a very, let's say, hard condition, For example, like back then we used to have in our countries, even in the Gambia, like corporal punishment.
Mm-hmm.
You get it, beating kids, and things like that. And again, it depends. So some of our parents actually had that kind of education, and then later on they became good statesmen that actually taught them. You get it? But it's also recommended that that's not actually necessary, because again, when you beat up the kid, tomorrow the kid could end up under police surveillance. What am I talking about? The kid can either become a criminal, a bandit, because he's already like thick-skinned. You get it? Will not take information from anybody. So I think this could either be how a child is raised, the process, the education the child goes through, has both positive and negative influences going forward.
I think a quick one. I just want to ask this. You make mention of the fact that the process in which the child goes through, probably he's gotten a lot of corporal punishment or some sort of punishment, makes him a tough skin, and now he could be a deviant or probably some sort of a problem for society. Which other ways can we then go about this? Because I don't think that kids should probably be, or anyone undergoing any form of training should be left free. I mean, to do things anyhow and any way they probably want it.
Let me just say this, and maybe Simon will comment because he's more qualified. Well, like corporal punishment, I think I have mixed feelings about it. Actually, I have mixed feelings about it. Back home, when we were beating at school, severely beating. We've been beaten like severely. You get it? That kind of actually trained some of us to be disciplined. You get it? Not all of us, actually. You get it? But again, when you ask about like what other ways, I'm not an educationist, but I think it may not be necessary depending on the society, depending on the conditions, let's say the family conditions and the like, because let's say silencing a child, like showing the child how to get to places or go to school regularly and on time, without even having to beat the child. I think this can instill attitude, habits, in the child that would help them, and also the peers, the friends the child moves with, that actually has a very big influence on the child. So I think having that, mixing, your kids with I don't know,
the rightful conditions.
And with good kids, kids that are properly trained, they will influence one another. So, but I think Simon will tell us now because he has students to teach.
Sure. I understand.
Yeah, okay, maybe just to add about the question about the tough processes that the student goes through. I think that we shouldn't limit it to only punishment, but the whole concept of education. You see, especially in our part of the world, as we know it, people are schooling in under very, very bad conditions. No better classrooms. You can't even describe those things as classrooms. We have schools under trees where children are basically studying under trees in very remote areas. So tough, process of education is actually broad. It's anything that takes away the concentration of the child from studying. Talk of child labor at home, talk of family issues. So, the concept of education is about socialization. And as we know, socialization, the first agent is the family. After the family, the community. And in the community, the child is given education, right? So whatever we are doing now is as a result of the education that we received. And not only the formal education, but also the informal education, right? So, I'm very passionate about education because, thanks be to God, the school I went to in primary school, the proprietor was very cool. He used to advise us, and his name is Misty, as we often call him. So, yeah, I just hope he'll watch this video and then take credit. He made a statement. He said, "Only the classroom offers equal opportunities for both the rich and the poor. Only the classroom offers equal opportunities for both the rich and the poor." And at that time, he told us this, I think maybe when I was in primary 6. But growing up, it has stuck in my mind, and it has been my guiding principle that, look, if you want to make a change in yourself and in your community, use education, right? So the tough processes will have to really be looked into. because I think that children do not deserve, especially in our part of the world, to study in a village. I believe that it is a disgrace to humanity. It is against a fundamental human right when we subject children to such harsh conditions. And at the end of the day, they are expected, especially in West Africa and of course in Africa, to write the same exams as those people who are studying in urban cities, having very good, atmosphere and the what have you. But you see, God is so merciful, because take an average brilliant child who studied under that harsh condition and compare to someone who studied in the urban, you'll be surprised with the outcome. Thank you very much.
But I just have like a quick one on that. Is the problem itself the village, or maybe the conditions, the school conditions? You could be in a village, but at least if the school conditions are okay, what do you think about that?
For me, there can never be a good condition in the village, for me, especially when talking about formal education, because we're talking of a typical village where there is no electricity, a typical village where teachers are refusing posting to because of the harsh condition there, a typical village where the child has maybe no ICT or whatever, And there was a video circulating on social media where a teacher had to draw a computer on the board and give stones to the kids to actually navigate as though the stones were mouse. You see, so it's very pathetic. It's very, very pathetic that we subject children under this condition, And
I think the conditions actually matter, but I think the major influence here is the person himself or herself. Went through primary school and secondary school educations in Africa. It's very, very rigorous. Teachers flogging and doing other, tough things to you. But at the end of the day, there were some of us that came out brightly, and some did not make it. And in fact, if you can watch back, even the ones that maybe don't make it, we are the ones that we are always being flogged. I think it depends on the individual mindset. Okay, I can do this, and because of the situation around me, let me just try to fight and do the rightful thing to go through education and see that okay, my family is okay, my country is okay, and so yeah, the conditions can determine, but I think the individual itself plays a very big role here. The mindset, yeah.
Yeah, may I maybe say something about that? I've never doubted the importance of opportunity. At least if there's something that I've learned, one of the many things I've learned coming to Russia is about the importance of opportunities. Given the opportunity, every child could be good. You see, so so the individual matter is very important. But mind you, we place education in the context of socialization. So a child that is being socialized in the village and a child that is being socialized in an urban place, we cannot tag the child and leave out the opportunities and the exposures that these guys have. Recently, I chanced upon a social media video where a certain woman in Ghana, she's a journalist and she's popularly called Vim Lady. Yeah, I really quite admire her sometimes. So apparently she was having an interview with a guy from Canada, and I think either Canada or US, I've forgotten. And the guy was kind of telling us about some scholarship opportunities in the US and in the Canada. And he said, you don't have to be good to be able to get this scholarship. You don't have to get first class to be able to get this scholarship. And that even he was raised in a village. And when he was applying for the scholarship, he actually had to move from that village to another city because in that village there was no light.
An internet connection.
So how many people in the village are in the villages who could have gained this same opportunity but they don't have it?
That's very tough spot. Speaking of corporal punishment, my opinion is in some countries, in some African countries, they need legal, like in Gambia, right?
Well, now illegal.
No.
Now it's yeah, it's
Before
legal.
it was legal. My question now is, because we know corporal punishment is the African way of life. It's the African, it's part of the African culture. So, do we abolish corporal punishment, or do we make it legal? If we are abolishing corporal punishment, on what basis are we doing it? If we are making it legal, what are the criteria for making it legal?
I think again, I have mixed feelings about that, but I would mainly lean on the side of abolishing it everywhere in the world. Like, I mean, everywhere in Africa, if it's existing, at least in some countries. My country doesn't exist now, because there are, I believe, other means of training kids. You know, back then, I think when we had corporal punishment, we didn't have like the internet, like Facebook. You have low access, like Evan was alluding to. So there are so many kids. What you have to do, well, again, I'm not a teacher or something. I believe what they have to do is to make the kids be interested in something. Every child is gifted, like Evan was talking about, right? You just have to find that what the child wants to do, what he or she is interested in. You make them interested in that, given the right circumstances, the internet and the like. Now, there are lots of stuff online that you can find, you know, for kids. Just get them interested. When you get them interested, you don't have to beat them. Like, I think the last time I was listening to Elon Musk saying, like, you don't have to like force kids to go to school. You don't have to make them. They have to want it. Like, nobody tells kids to play video games. They just get up and play. You know, so that's how education should be like. They just have to get up and do mathematics because it's like natural for them. Because this is what they want to do. You don't have to carry them to school. You don't have to force them to do their homework. It has to be inbuilt in them. And I believe every child has that. But what you have to do is to show them, like give them the options. Maybe what the child wants is not there, but make him like ask the questions. You get the right questions, make him search. I think that searching part is actually what I believe science is all about. Maybe.
Yeah, and to cut off it, you know, I'm very glad that, you know, these days there's quite a gradual shift from education on formal way to the informal part of education. Because the point is, I think in the early of this century, you know, the focus was on formal education. So a lot of people go to school. If you don't go get a university degree, it was almost as if you were nobody. But like you said, you know, with the internet, social media, people are making fortunes on YouTube.
Yeah.
People are making fortunes with podcasts and other things, you know. So we have to rethink education and actually make the child choose what he or she wants to be. And sometimes, you know, I don't know whether we are talking about challenges now, because one of the key challenges in education in Africa is about career guidance. We don't have it. You know, I went through school, you know, first I really wanted to be a journalist because in primary school I was good in English, I was good in French and social studies, and these three courses were helping me, you know, they were putting me on top. but the other and so especially French, I love that course. But you know, mathematics and science, I wasn't very, very strong over there. So I remember one day my science teacher advising that, hey man, look, the way you understand English, apply it in a concept of science and you're going to be better, you know. So I always wanted to be a journalist, but the system of evaluation, you know, that takes us to the senior high school, denied me of my first choice, which was Kumasi Anglican, where I chose general arts, and took me to the school that I've come to love again, you know. Kumasi Senior High School.
Of course, and I think this is actually what we should try to improve on in the educational system in Africa. You know, let's expose our children to what they want to learn. You understand? You know, before the pre-colonial educational system, we had this kind of system in Africa they call the apprentice type of education, apprenticeship. You know, here like you were allowed to like choose a type of profession you want in your locality. Then you have your immediate boss that will be teaching you what the things are like involving. But like after the fathers came up, colonial fathers came, they changed this system and just like maybe give us a system that maybe fits them and ignore what we want. And you can see in why should I be reading English as a compulsory subject in my country and not doing technology as something compulsory? So I think it's just all about choice. Leave the child to like do what they want to do. It can be very, very, interesting and nice. So that's it.
Okay, may I? I think that the issue of corporal punishment, it's quite a tough one, but I don't think any child should be subjected to any sort of brutal or physical sort of torture in any way. It's not a good thing. I don't support that. I think that we should try to find innovative ways. I mean, to make kids understand the whys. They ought to not do something, and the importance that comes out of it. And kids should be exposed. I mean, kids should get to know about a whole lot of things. And I think that one of the ways could be this. Kids, there could be some form of reward system for kids for doing what is right, and probably get a lot of choices or a lot of work if you sought to kind of probably turn a blind eye to the things that it's not right. Some kids do not even understand the context in which sometimes they are being subjected to physical brutality or some of these corporal punishment. So I think that they should be exposed. They should know. They should, like my colleagues have already mentioned, they should be exposed. They should get to know the whys of issues and guide them in a way to make the rightful choices when it comes to these issues.
Thank you guys for your contribution.